on him well? Is he okay, or what's happening?
What do you mean?
It seemed like he had a stuff in the mouth.
He's fine.
I also wanted to get an update on Nico. Anything new to report?
Nothing new to report there.
Coach, obviously this Vancouver team is very different, but I wanted to know what could you keep of what you learned from the first meeting against Vancouver? What could you use to your advantage from that game?
You mean the difference in new coach or significant players or?
Yeah, they're obviously a much different team with a change of coaching and stuff, but what could you keep that you learned from that game that you could use in this one?
Well, we scored 2 pretty good goals that game. So that's one thing. Vanny has been there for the last 2 years. So he knows the players. Players know him. Subtle differences. But Mark DeSantos was the one that started that kind of little run that they've had. He was still there, and then, Vanny took over after that. I think it was a Canadian championship loss to Pacific, bottom of Ka. I think that's why Mark got let go, or after that game he got let go. So there are some differences, but, a lot of the personnel is the same. I mean, they picked up Youngworth from San Jose. That was an important piece for them. We haven't seen White. We haven't seen Gold. So, it's a different look.
Dahome Cancedo were able to stretch you out at moments in that particular game, and they got behind to several couple of times. How could you prevent that, or how do you limit those two players this time around?
Well, I think we've, solved that in many ways. You're going to do it one of 2 ways. You either put more pressure on the ball, or you drop your lines if there's no pressure. I know the goals you're talking about, and, goalkeepers coming off their line, sometimes that's a risky thing, but we're miles past that.
When you're studying for Vancouver and looking at what they've done here in the last few months and their recent form, what are the common denominators that stick out as the reason why they've had so much success recently?
They don't give up a lot of goals. I'm sure you guys know they've only scored 3, or they've allowed 3 in their last set of games, so that's what I would attribute it to.
And they play similar to that team back.
Yeah. A little bit different to us. I mean, they might line up, house shape or real 3-4-3, but we'll see.
Just in terms of, let me start over. How important is it for you to go back again and continue the starting on the front foot at home as you did last game?
That's been a big part of our messaging. That's the way we always want to start. That's the way we always try and start. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but that's what we always try and do.
Does that mean you're going to press up front to start the game?
We're always going to press up front at home. We're always going to do that. It's just whether we're successful or not.
Alex Roldan captained El Salvador last night. What were your impressions of seeing that and overall the game?
That was the 3rd game of a 3-game set. I watched Mexico-Canada, which was an interesting game. Obviously, I watched the U.S. game, but that's another feather in his cap. Alex has had an extraordinary year, so we couldn't be prouder of him.
When you look back on that year, what's the messaging to Alex? Who's still, kind of just growing through his...
Follow it up with another good year. That's going to be my messaging. Make sure you're the captain for 10 years.
Qualifying for the playoffs, how different is that for you each season, that experience, that game that you actually played?
Well, it's different, Jada, because, it just depends on what time of year. I mean, I think it was 2016 we had to wait all the way to the end, and we beat RSL or something to get us in for sure. You guys have a better memory than I do. And then there's times we've been in the playoffs with 5 games to go or, whatever. The challenge with both of those scenarios is if you leave it to late, usually you're not in a good position to host any home games. If you get there early, then sometimes you worry about complacency in your group, in your team, about, you've made it in the playoffs and they kind of let their foot off the gas. So, it's different every year for sure, like you said. But we just, we're just going to keep going. I mean, every game's important. Every game's a playoff game. Sporting Kansas City and Colorado are nipping at our heels. We want to be first in the West. So
So does that help the wanting to be first in the West? Does that help avoid any kind of complacency
Sure.
because they are close this
Sure.
time, if you do clinch?
yeah, sure. But again, there's human nature involved. Players are human; they're not robots. You know, they watch the standings and they have feelings, and sometimes it's hard.
Brad Smith was out here. Don't think he's cleared.
He'll be fine.
He'll be fine.
He's a tough kid.
And he's obviously cleared whatever protocols he needs to clear.
Yes, he is eligible for selection for this game.
That's what I was getting.
Yeah. I don't know the exact terminology I'm supposed to use, Mickey, but he's eligible for the game.
Brian, going back to the human element, do you have to say anything depending on peril, or is it past that being facing his own team? Sometimes those technical players.
You know, Freddie is such an experienced player that yes, there might be some tinges of that, but he plays every game similar. I mean, he's just enjoying his, last 5 years. That was for you, Freddie. His last 5 years of his career, he's enjoying every moment. And he appreciates the group of guys. He loves being back in Seattle. He's motivated on winning championships, maybe not individual games. He's just a really good pro. I mean, the other game down in San Jose, he was talking on the field to Leo Chu, kind of, hey, you got to come back around here defending in the second half. I don't know if you guys could see it on the TV feed, but on the panoramic feed, you could see it. I mean, Freddie's done a lot of the little things to help this team be successful, help this group of players be successful.
And he told us just before you obviously that it didn't matter where you put him, whether it's in the box or in the midfield. He's just
Yeah.
his versatility and willingness to make a difference.
He's still a good player. I mean, we're lucky he came back.
It seems like Freddie, Will Brew, and they just mash well together in their movements and things like that. Would you agree with that and that chemistry between them?
Yeah. I mean, you know where Freddie likes to get the ball. You know what Will likes to do. I think that's always useful. I mean, that's the beauty of this squad is there are certain pairs of players in different parts of the field that I have the flexibility to play one way against this opponent, we play another way against another opponent, so that's just part of the whole success of this team this year. Missing some key guys, but we're still doing it. And the reason why we're still doing it, still being successful, is because of the way we pair the groups together, both in smaller groups and then the overall makeup of the team. It's been good.
How quickly has Nico Benesat been able to pick up the style of play, the formation,
Good.
positioning?
I mean, you guys saw him before he had his little setback with his little hip pointer. I mean, he's been good. He's a smart soccer player. So he fits that. I like smart soccer players.
With Ladero, obviously you played the majority of the season without him, and playoffs usually go up another notch. Has this team shown you enough, if it were to be the case that he isn't able to return, that they can pull off a run and still win a championship
Sure.
without him?
We're in first place, Jada. I mean, I think we've demonstrated fairly well pretty much all year. And you have to remember Jordan Morris wasn't here for an extended period of time. You have to know that Steph Fry, missing depth players like Jordy DeLam and other guys along the way. I mean, we've come through a lot of adversity, this group, and we've still managed to keep on top.
What I mean also, though, is that playoffs typically feel like another level. Like you have to find
That game in Sporting Kansas City after the loss to Lyon, you might have even asked me about that playoffs or something. You might have asked me a question about it. Did that feel like a playoff game?
Yeah.
And we were able to get a result there. So I think this team has shown. We talk about that Lyon game, that the Leagues Cup performance by our team. It's very. Tigres spends $80 million on payroll, salary. I mean, they've got an expensive team. Santos is at the top, near the top. Leon's near the top. We showed we could play with all of them without. Well, I guess Nico scored the golazo against Tigres. It was a highlight. But you know what I'm saying. This team has performed well against quality opposition, minus Jordan, minus Nico, minus Steph, minus Delem, minus some of the guys that we've missed. It's shown that it can do it.
Speaking of Morris, you mentioned on Tuesday you're giving Jordan the weekend off. Is he getting an additional wedding gift in addition to the weekend off?
His wedding gift when he comes back is a kick in the rear and hurry up and get out on the field. That's his wedding gift.
Any other questions, guys?
Yeah, I got one more.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah. Brian, how tough is it to bring players, integrate players back on a team that's top organization? Is that discussion you have to have with the integrated player to say, hey, it's okay, do what you can?
Yeah.
They want to make that impact.
Yeah, you gotta make sure the timings are right, the situation is right before you incorporate. You know, there's the fitness guys want to. You know, we can't get a guy who's missed 3 months, start him and have him play 90 minutes. I mean, you got to measure their minutes and do all sorts of things. We think about a lot of different things as we incorporate guys back into the mix. So your question about Jordan, look, there'll be some timelines when he first touches the field. But, you know, just even having him out there on the field is going to be great.